just like us, growing in years. We the goal to make a change of the world around your race. They've been able to set the pace.
Today we shall be engaging a woman who by every substance is dubbed the guru of history and its development in Nigeria. An outstanding woman who has distinguished herself as a scholar, a feminist and an educationist par excellence is none other than Professor Bolanle Awe OFR. Welcome to the world of one of the few female life builders whose voices is laden with a passion for a more youth-focused future. Professor Bolanle Awe was born on the 23rd of January 1933 in Ilesa to Pa Samuel Akindeji Fajembola and Madame Moshe Bolaton on the transfer of her father, a manager with the famous John Holt, to Ilesa. She attended Holy Trinity School, Imofe, Ilesa, St. James Primary School, Okebola, Ibadan, and St. Anne's School, Ibadan. She took her A-levels at the Perse School in Cambridge. She went to St. Andrews University in Scotland where she obtained her Masters in History before taking a doctorate in History at the Oxford University. Awe then returned to Nigeria where she became a lecturer at the University of Ibadan. She rose to be a professor at the same university. She was one of the historians who allowed her evidence to include oral traditions. This means that she was able to trace back histories before the arrival of the Europeans. She was also active in identifying how the role of women in history was being overlooked, and she co-founded the Women's Research and Documentation Center, WARDOC, to promote the coordination of women's studies research and new methodologies to study Nigerian women. Professor Bolanle Awe spent short spells away from the university system as a commissioner for education and later of trade, industries and cooperatives in Osun State, 1975 to 1978. She was also the founding chair of the Nigerian National Commission for Women, 1990 to 1992, which later served as the nucleus for the current Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. From 1984 to 1990, she served as the founding country director of John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, an American foundation which has been supportive first of reproductive health and rights of women and is now actively involved in the development of higher education in Nigerian universities, notably University of Ibadan, University of Port Harcourt, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria and Bayero University, Kano. Professor Awe served at various times on different government committees, Council of Government Boards and parastatals, the last being of the Council of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where she was the chairperson and Pro-Chancellor. She was chairman, Governing Council, University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital, Yeye Moton of Ibadan land. She was a member of council at Jai Crowther University, Oyo. Among her many awards are the following: National Honor of the Officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, OFR, in 1983, and the Honorary Doctor of Letters, Bells University of Technology, Ota, Osun State, in 2012. Professor Bolanle Awe has published extensively on the history of Ibadan, as well as in the area of history and women's studies. She is married to Emeritus Professor Muyiwa Awe, and they are blessed with children and grandchildren.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you very much for having us in your house.
Happy to have you.
It's a real honor meeting you for the first time. Ma, can you go back to the very beginning? Tell us how Miss Professor Bolanle, where did it start from?
Well, it started not from the very beginning. I was born in a place called Ilesa. The first 8-9 years of my life at a place called Holy Trinity School of Ofe. So we had to move to Ibadan when I went to St. James School in 1951. Some of us went abroad. I went to a public school in Cambridge, the Perse School for Girls. I had 2 wonderful professors. I read modern history and medieval history. And the two professors were Oxford people. For some reason, I got on quite well with them. And this we should all learn, I was very involved with their activities there. You know, we had the Students' Union, the Students' Representative Council, and you could stand for election. And you would go and stand for election, and you would stand on the rostrum, and you would give your brief, what are you going to do, and so on, and people will ask you questions and heckle you and so on. And so I really enjoyed myself there. And the lecturers were also very nice. They allowed you to ask them questions at all times. It's a small community, and you walk across the lawn talking to your professor and so on. And they gave me a reference to Oxford. And I went for the interview in Oxford. And when I got there, I was interviewed by the history don in my college, Somerville College. It's the oldest female college in Oxford. And that I wanted to do African history. And she was shocked. And she said there was nothing like African history, that they only know about European history and American history and English history, that Africans don't have a history. So I told him that, in fact, my people have also written about themselves. But she wasn't convinced. She said, they cannot admit me, that if I wanted to do European history or some other history, they would take me, but not for that. So, and I knew I had another option. I could have gone to London, where they are already doing African history, so I walked out. But the following day, the principal of the college then called me and said, they have decided to admit me to the college. So I was surprised. He said, yes, you will be surprised that we are not convinced that there is African history. But you say you are going to do African history. Now you have to convince us that there is African history by doing African history. And said, that is why we've decided to admit you into the college. It was great fun. My supervisor in Oxford was a woman called Marjorie Perham. I don't know whether you've heard of Marjorie Perham. Marjorie Perham was the one who wrote the biography of Lord Lugard. And you know, it's through them that Nigeria got its name, that title, Nigeria. She was my supervisor. She was a tall, impressive woman. She was a consultant to the colonial office, and we used to have the excitement of a number of the people, like Tom Mboya. Have you ever heard of Tom Mboya? Tom Mboya was one of the first prime ministers of Kenya. Tafada Balewa himself used to come there. Zikwe used to come there. And in fact, Miss Perham wrote the foreword to Awolowo's first book, Path to Nigerian Freedom. Miss Perham wrote it. So she was a well-known person. It was quite exciting being with her. I came back home to do field work, I think in 57 or 50. And I stayed at the University of Ibadan. I started work in the University of Ibadan on the day that Nigeria became independent, 1960. But a day or two later, the secretary to the Department of History then came and said, look, they're expecting you in that department that you should start. So I started working in the Department of History. It was quite an experience because I was the first Nigerian woman to be appointed there, to the University of Ibadan. So it was quite, everybody was watching whether this woman will make it or not. But my department, the history department, was extremely excited. They were very nice, and they took it as a challenge that this woman will not fail. I'd done some African history, but not enough. But they made sure that I did more. And the students themselves were curious to know whether this woman can deliver or not. I got married. My husband too was teaching in the physics department, but he was a very restless person. He felt that he wasn't challenged enough by Ibadan. So he decided to go to Lagos, and he was appointed to the physics department in Lagos. I felt that it was not on, to have my husband in Lagos and I in Ibadan. We already had, I think, 2 children by then, 2 boys. So I then moved on to Lagos too. I became a member of staff of the School for African and Oriental Studies there. But as I said, my husband was a very restless person. After some time, he decided he wanted to go back to Ibadan. So he came back to Ibadan. He was back to the physics department where he became professor of physics. And of course, I had to follow. I came back to Ibadan. So I hope you girls understand what I'm saying, the trials of a woman. So I came back to Ibadan, and I didn't go back to the history department. I went to the Institute of African Studies, and I became a research fellow there. And I was there all the time until I became professor there. And at one point, director of the institute.
Okay, we want you to tell us the role history plays in improving a society.
You see, you cannot understand a country, you cannot understand yourself unless you know what your past has been like. You can't, and that is history. It's only when you know what you had done in the past. It's only when you know about your colonial past, for instance, how you were treated under the British administration, that they will give you a challenge. Do you want to continue like that, or do you want to do better? I mean, because I don't think we have been falling back and looking back at our history. Our history should be a challenge, that if we've been able to achieve this in the past, there's no reason why we should not be able to achieve it in the future and in the present. But people are not even conscious of it. If they are conscious of it, they wouldn't now be talking about indigenization as if it's a big deal. This is something that has been done before. And when you're an academic, you are adding to the store of knowledge. That means that you are doing research. To add to the store of knowledge, nobody, even if we're talking about Ibadan, I can't say that I have all the information about Ibadan. Somebody might decide to come and work on some part of Ibadan and add more information to it. So that the job of an academic is to continue to research. And not only research, you don't just keep the knowledge to yourself. You must write. You must write papers and publish papers so that your colleagues can understand, can read it, can agree with you or disagree with you, and you are adding to the store of knowledge as a lecturer, because your promotion depends on the number of papers that you have published. If you haven't published papers, nobody is going to look at you. And if it's to the level of a professorship, for instance, your papers will be sent out to your peers in other universities and institutions. They will look at your papers and they will agree that, oh yes, she's done enough work or he's not done enough work. That's the way.
Thank you. Now, you're the first female lecturer in the University of Ibadan.
Yes.
I'm sure that there were so many people watching to see what you would do. So were you like really, really strict with students? I mean, when we were grading, because they're like, oh, this is the first female, she will be so nice with us and all.
because I'd been in a place, in institutions where my lecturers had been nice and friendly, I tried to adopt that same sort of approach to my students. And we used to chat together, and they would ask me questions and so on. But much later, one of them, who is, in fact, she's just retired as a professor, was saying it that I was a very strict lecturer, that they would, whenever they were expecting an A or something, I would only end up by giving them B+. But I thought I was very generous to them. So that's it.
Thank you, Ma. Ma, how were you able to combine the roles of being a mother, a wife, a lecturer, and a role model to many without one clashing in or the other?
It's pretty tough. You know, I've told you about the fact that my husband decided to go to Lagos. I had to follow him. He decided to come back from Lagos to Ibadan. I had to follow him to keep the home, right?
Yes.
And also, I had 2 sons, and I thought they needed their father as well as their mother. But it was easy then. But now you couldn't do that. You have to make some sacrifice as a woman. There's no way. You have to, if you really care for your children, you know, because they need the motherly care. They need the motherly care. I can tell you, I had to go to, when I was in Lagos, I had to come to Ibadan to do some field work. I left my children with a friend. When I got back, the teacher in our staff school called me and said, "Your son is not doing well. He's not doing well." I was shocked. So I went to the class, and the teacher showed me he hasn't been doing this, he hasn't been doing his homework and so on. For almost 2 weeks, I had to be sitting in front of that class to write down everything that the boy had not done. The boy should be nameless. So you cannot, you have to give up something, but it may not be as bad as that, you know. If you also have to think in terms of your home and your husband, and have some understanding of him, and let him know the nature of your job and the demands of your job. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, the demands of my job were easy. I didn't have to be in the office from 8 to 10 or whatever. All I have to, the most important thing is that I come, I give my lectures at the right time, and I write my papers and publish them. And if there are departmental meetings, I go to them. But they are few and far between. So the demands for an academic person are not as great as, say, somebody who has a straightforward job in an office. As for the history of the times, I feel that if we introduce history back into school, people will understand what history is all about. It's not just about the past. It's how you can learn from the past for the future and for the present. You know, the mistakes you had made in the past, you will understand, so you avoid those mistakes in the present. So that is what history is about. The youth, you are having a good time, but take it easy, and the world is yours, but it's a world of challenge. And if it fails, it will be your own generation that has failed, and that will be recorded in history. So you do have a challenge, and I hope that you will pick up that challenge and do what is right, and also listen to the words of the older people. They're not all that foolish. sometimes they could be very intelligent, you know. And please don't let the media take control of you, because I know that the media has taken control of quite a number of people, the way they dress, the way they behave, the way they address other people. They are not, but we have a culture of our own, of which we should be proud. And the way we have a culture of addressing the older people, concern for the older people, even respect for one another, so that you grow up together to accommodate one another and to understand one another. I think we should not look at what it's on the radio, on the television or whatever, because I know a lot of that is happening now, but it's not good enough. And even in the way of dressing, in the way of speaking, in the way of behavior. I mean, I go to the market or I go to the shop. If I'm buying something from the cashier or paying the cashier money, if the cashier gives me money with the left hand, I tell her, look, use your right hand. I'm not going to take anything from you with the left. That is not our own culture. Our culture is that you should respect each other and hand over with the right hand, not with the left hand. And the issue of respect for one another, for yourselves, even for the younger people too. If you are going to correct them, do so with a lot of patience and explain to them why you are saying they should do this. Don't just be a boss, just telling them, I say you must do this because I'm older than you or that.
Ones like us, growing in years, we the goal to make a change of the world around your race. They've been able to set the pace. Today, we engage them